Time management is about mortality. That's it. Our time isn't a function of productivity. Our time isn't a function of like optimization. Our time is about mortality. You'll never get serious about time management until you recognize your life on this planet is extremely limited, that you only have so many days and weeks and months and years. And I say that very personally. Time management is one of the most important things in my life because I've been on what I thought was my deathbed 3 times in my life. And, many of you know that first famous story of my car accident, where after I survived that car accident, I thought, I don't want to take this life for granted. If life can suddenly end, I want to earn this opportunity of life. I want to pour myself into life. I want to experience life. I want to live, love, and matter, which became my mantras for life. Even my evaluative framework for do I do time management well is couched in terms of my life's big questions. Did I live today? Did I love today? Did I matter today? So as you think about time management today, I just want to elevate the conversation, and then we'll go really narrow into the calendar stuff, okay? But everything begins with, are you taking time seriously? Are you aware of the gift of life? Do you have a philosophy for what you want your life to be about, and you're managing the time to manifest that? So for me, life is about living and loving and making a difference. So with that frame, now I can actually evaluate time management. Not just, did I do the deadline or did I get the thing done, but rather a bigger picture conversation. And the bigger picture conversation is, do I feel like I'm living my life so when I answer the questions at the end of my life, I'm happy with the answers? And I know my questions at the end of my life are going to be, did I live? Did I love? Did I matter? I just know that because I've been faced with my own mortality several times. You might have different questions that are guiding your life. But once you have that philosophy in place of what life is about and what your primary questions might be that you might ask at the very end of your life, in your deathbed or on that proverbial rocking chair, and you look back to your life, you're going to say, did I? Was I? And as you think about that, did I do these things? Was I a person like this? As you think about that, all those questions you're going to ask, I want you to live a life where there's not a tremendous number of regrets because you didn't have that clarity about what your questions might be. Because if you have clarity about how you evaluate your life at the end of your life, now everything is a time management game, isn't it? Once you know, like, oh, at the end, I'll look back and I'll ask, was I a good mom? Great. There's an evaluative framework for your time management today, right? Did I have adventures? Great. Is it on the calendar, those adventures? Did I contribute in this way with my art or my teaching or my mentorship or my business or my career? Great. Let's make sure that we're aligning those things to that outcome. So it's that old Stephen Covey trick of begin with the end in mind. And it doesn't sound motivational when a personal development guy says, hey, you're all going to die. And people go, oh my God, they get all freaked out. However, there is no time management without mortality awareness. Y'all got it? There is no time management without mortality awareness. Otherwise, what are we managing? And so I hope this hits for you today. Like this is why I feel like I'm great at time management. I know where I'm heading in my life. I know at the end of my life, I'm going to think about whether or not I had a sense of aliveness and love, and I felt like I made a difference. So that's my evaluative framework. Time management is about mortality awareness. If we can just start with that, we're going to have a great session. If that's too heavy for you, welcome to personal development. This is the stuff that we do. Second big philosophy before we get into it is time management is about mortality and time management is about priority. Every day you are prioritizing something. Every decision you make is a prioritization activity. And how you use each day, you're prioritizing something. And you have to get comfortable with whether or not you're prioritizing right. And you have to be honest with it. You have to go, you know what? I say family's a priority, but I never talk to them. I say that my health and energy is a priority, but I ate those 3 bags of chips last night. I say that having fun in life is a priority, but I haven't left my house in 9 years. So we have to think about what we really believe our priorities to be and understand that you don't have to guess at this one. Your priorities are insanely well established. They're conscious or unconscious, but they're incredibly well established. If I parachute into your life and we just look back at your last 3, 6, 9, and 12 months in your calendar, and we see what you've been focusing your time on, there it is. The priorities are established. Most people say, I'm not sure what they should be. I'm like, oh, no, you are absolutely sure. You've been living your priorities. You have already been living your priorities. It's clear. There's no question what your priorities are. There's zero question. And that really shocks people when I tell them that as a coach. But it's like, oh, there's no question. Your priorities are written in stone in the last 3, 6, 9, and 12 months. So is that stone that your priorities have been written in? If that was your gravestone, are you happy about that? See, we think one day I'll establish my priorities. I'm like, they're already established. Are you happy with them? Is there something that needs adjustment there? Is there something you need to change there? Do you need to get some clarity there? Each day is about prioritization. And I'm here to tell you the world has lost its sanity when we talk about prioritization now. Because how easy it is to pick up your phone and scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll. And you just prioritized consumption of literally nothingness for an hour. And you don't think about it. But when you just kind of consume on social media randomly, which most of the world does now between 60 and 90 minutes every day, they don't realize that that's 30 hours a month. 30 hours a month. They don't realize that it ends up being 12 work weeks a month lost, 3 months a year. The average person is losing 3 months of 8-hour work days to scrolling social media today. That's just social media. That doesn't even count television. 3 months. That's tragic. So a lot of people, I don't have any time. I'm like, oh, you got time. You don't got priorities. Woo! I know you've heard this before, but my job today is maybe push a little bit, but also just re-anchor us in the obviousness, right? I think it's so obvious. Time is about mortality and priorities, but people forget. Third big idea for you today to hit you up right in the face with to begin the show is that time management is about positive well-being and experiences, right? What are we using our time for? Well, we want to use our time in such a way that we experience life satisfaction, positive emotions of meaning and fulfillment and joy and love and creativity and zest and passion and intimacy, all these things that are a positive range of emotions. So just like we can look at your priorities the last 3, 6, 9, 12 months, can we also look back and ask, is the way you're using time generating ongoing, awesome, positive emotions and experiences? See, time management is about how you feel. I love that truth. Like, if I'm not managing my time well, I don't feel well, right? I just don't feel well. Some people, when they don't manage their time well, they think, well, I'm behind on my tasks. They get guilty. They shame themselves. They think I'm terrible. That's not what today's about, even though I'm hitting hard right at the beginning. I think what's important is you realize how much of life can feel so much more beautiful and engaging and fun when you take your time seriously. That's all. Take your time seriously. You'll build in more fun activities. Take your time seriously. All of a sudden, you feel so much more engaged, so much more fulfilled, and so much more energized. When you're using time terribly, you feel disengaged, you feel tired, you feel wrecked, you feel burned out, you feel overwhelmed, you feel stressed. Almost every negative emotion that we can tend to sense is in some sense a utilization of our time today. Now, I know the psychologists in the room won't like that statement because, of course, Brendon, a lot of our emotional reality, emotions are automatic, they are physical, they are impulsive, they just happen. And I get that. And people, especially who struggle with trauma in the past, or they struggle with trauma now, I should say more accurately, and they're in a place where it's like, hey, that positive well-being is not as accessible for them as others who have a different level or a different life experience of mental health. And I get that. But even those who struggle the most, we have to ask, how are you using your time today? What are you focusing on? What are you trying to create? Who are the people you're engaging? How are you choosing to show up? How are you taking care of yourself? There's no self-care without good time management, period. You'll give away all of your power and all of your time and keep burning out. There's no self-care without good time management. This is going to be one of those sessions where you go, got it. That the reason we do personal development, it's ultimately all about new ways of accessing self-awareness, isn't it? That when we hear new ideas in personal development, maybe just a slight change in how we think about something or how we think about ourselves, life can change. Just one little subtle shift in how we think about a topic, in how we approach something in our life. Those subtle shifts can make a big difference. And this topic today is that. We're talking about setting boundaries. I'm going to talk about how to think about this topic of boundaries. So we're going to be talking about on boundaries all day long. And I think you're going to be really amazed in the simple hour of how much you're going to cover and learn today in your own self-awareness in a way you probably haven't thought about boundaries before. Because what most people do when I say, the topic of setting boundaries, they immediately think of like, I need to set boundaries with my family. I need to set boundaries with this jerk in my life. I need to set boundaries with, by the way, we'll talk about those things, but I'm going to elevate the conversation for you. If you'll forgive me, go a little more advanced on this topic, because I think that's the power of Growth Day. It's not only just hearing the common sense things, but maybe hearing a little more advanced approach to these topics. And I think that is the promise of today. So thank you for being here. Let's do some personal development work. We're talking about boundaries today. And here's how I'm going to start with this. The most important boundaries you're ever going to set in your life are with yourself and what is acceptable with who you are, what is acceptable in how you conduct yourself. A boundary between the good self and the not so good self. A boundary between the higher level of who you are versus the lower impulses. A boundary in your own sense of what is right and wrong and what you will allow yourself. In other words, we're going to go into the conversation of standards that we allow in ourselves and in our lives. And I think when you think about a boundary, not just something between you and another person, but in your own mindset about what is allowed or not allowed, I think this could be a game-changing conversation today. And I'm gonna jump right into it because I don't want to speak conceptually for you here. So let me talk about some important boundaries in your life. I'll talk about 3 huge internal boundaries. Then we'll talk about the standards that we allow in our life that may be really hurting us or accelerating us. First one, I think you guys are gonna love this. So you can grab a screen grab. I wish I was prettier with my fancy camera, but here we go. I think you're gonna like this one. The boundary of the fake self versus the real self. Take that screen grab. You got to get this. See, this boundary and what you allow here and how you conduct yourself here, it matters, doesn't it? When I talk about setting boundaries, very few people ever think about this one. Because when we talk about setting boundaries, we often feel victim to something. We feel like, oh, well, someone's encroaching on my boundaries. We'll talk about that. But this is the one that causes the real damage. When we blur the lines between who we authentically really are and how we are showing up to please or placate others, to minimize ourselves, that's the boundary. How much do you cross this boundary? You want to talk about the quality of your life? How much do you cross this boundary right here? Think about this. How much, how often do you cross this boundary? That can be the game changer in your life today. When you become aware of these two selves that we all have, the authentic, the authentic, the real, the vibrant self versus the face, the facade, the person we try to be for others. It's not really us. When we step outside of ourselves into a persona of somebody else to please others, to fit in, to belong, to get love, this is the ultimate boundary that breaks our own integrity. This is the boundary that makes us miserable. And you have to decide at some point in your personal development that you don't cross this boundary as much anymore. And at some day, not at all. And that is the ultimate work of personal development, isn't it? How easy it is to glide into conformity, to go from who we really are to suddenly acting out of character. I really believe breaking this boundary leads to most of the long-term miseries in our life. Let me say it again. Breaking this boundary leads to most of the long-term miseries in our life. When we aren't honest about our real thoughts, feelings, desires, dreams, hopes, aspirations, and instead we show up just to please others and to fit in, we minimize ourselves. We enlarge the falsehoods in our life. And see, there is this thing of a boundary, right? There's a boundary between true and false, fake and real, authentic and inauthentic. I know we all might use different languages. I'm very aware that this is an international audience. I just think you've got to figure that out and get highly attuned to when that is happening. When people talk about mindfulness, they're often talking about, ooh, look at the flowers over there. Let me notice the sensations in my body. When they talk about mindfulness, they often think of, let me just drink in this moment. But the most critical and important part of mindfulness is to know who you are and who you are being in any given moment. Because I know a lot of people, they can appreciate the flowers all day long, but they're miserable because they're not being themselves. Listen, write this down. Boundaries are all about identity. Boundaries. The most important boundary you will ever set in your life is, who are you? What's in that circle of who you are? And what's outside of that? Who are you? Who are you not? In other words, just bringing back my little picture here, the fake self versus the real self. That's the ultimate boundary, to be mindful of when I cross that. Oh, it's so important. I know a lot of you out there, you're influencers, you're creators, you're leaders, you're caregivers, you know, and you can recognize how often you have to step into a role maybe you don't want to be in, or maybe you're in a situation where you have to hold back a little of your own truth for decorum. You have to put on a shiny face and not freak out on your child. You have to calm yourself down because you want to scream at somebody. That's self-regulation. That's okay. That's allowed. We have to do those things. What we are talking about is an enduring sense, an enduring recognition or mindfulness of how often we are crossing these boundaries. This is a conversation of frequency, isn't it? Because sometimes we have to do a certain behavior that's appropriate. We're going to talk about that later. Right now, I want to shift your whole brain. Oh my God, setting boundaries in my life is all about who am I? Who am I really? And am I showing up as that consistently, with intention, with joy, with flow? That is the thing we are actually talking about, not just boundaries about, what you'll allow on your plate from others. It's about who you are. The more often you break this boundary, the more miserable you are. I really want you to capture that. I know you're kind of like, geez, Brendon, thanks for the personal development today. Can we get some dancing bears and balloons? Make this a little more entertaining, dude. This is a little hard, but this is why you might be miserable. And I don't say that in any judgmental way. I've been there and I've coached thousands of people through this. We got to get you more on this side. We've got to be aware when we break a boundary, who we are not. Very key. You want to change your life, you also become vitally aware of this other internal boundary. And this is this one. Your old self versus your new self. You got to know what happens is you have these patterns or these habits, these ways of thinking that were shaped by others. You have this old identity and you have the new you, who you are today as a conscious, intentional, living adult, right? This is when you drop into your childhood fears and concerns. And this is when you are in the moment as an authentic, conscious adult, right? I know not everyone loves this language, but I think it's important. And I've had to say this, listen, just for context, I know so many people are new into GrowthDay here, but I've been coaching people one-on-one for 16 years of my life, 16 years. I've worked with people from all walks of life, 100+ countries. I've had the blessing of so many millions of people going through our programs and getting immediate feedback, but also I do this one-on-one with people for 16 years. And sometimes as a high performance coach, I have to push a little bit. I always say I'm paid to push. I have to sometimes jar people or help them see themselves or recognize something. And so I know not everyone will like this language that I'll use, but sometimes I'll say with a client directly to them, I say, is that the high school self? Or is that you as a leader? And what I'm helping them recognize is this versus this. There is an old part of you or old set of patterns or habits or beliefs that you have to be aware that might not serve you, and they cannot break the boundary into the now. Who knows what I'm talking about? Anyone? Does this resonate with anyone? I see. Okay, good. You got to know when that boundary is broken. Oh, my high school self just walked up into this room and smacked everybody in the face. You got to know. You got to know when you lose it. You got to know when that childish, smaller, older, less competent, less secure you shows up in the moment, breaks the boundaries of time. The time zone boundary just got broke, right? Time zones are a boundary of time, aren't they? That's what a time zone is. It's a boundary of time. And sometimes we allow that boundary to be broke with old thoughts, old beliefs, old insecurities, old selves that do not belong in this moment. And so I know not everyone likes it when I call you or call a client high school, because that's not really that kind, because I knew a lot of kids in high school who were wise and centered and incredibly remarkable and spontaneous and creative and giving. That wasn't me. Just letting I just want to let you know, people. Okay. So when I say it, what I mean is that childish, dramatic, overly selfish, repugnant, like little high school kid that got all worked up and angry and had no emotional regulation, no connection with intention and vision. So maybe it's not appropriate to say that. I'm trying to give it to you as a metaphor, though. Is there, and that's why I like this language, is there an old you that shows up once in a while and breaks the boundary into the now? If so, when does that happen? Let me share with you one of the most important concepts in setting boundaries is to recognize when that happens. Same thing with this one. When do these breaks happen? What's the pattern there? Is it when you're under pressure? Is it when you're feeling defensive? Is it when someone judges you? Is it when someone doesn't comply? Is it when they insult you? Is it when you fail? Is it when you're feeling discouraged? Right? We all know this. It happens in our lives, right? Imagine the truth of how many of you have ever been on a diet or a new health program and you're like, I'm building a new self. I'm going to get pretty. I'm going to get, in better shape. I'm going to do all these things. And then you have a bad day and you're 3 seasons into some Netflix show and you've murdered like 17 bags of chips and popcorn and 2 bottles of wine. You're like, oh my God. Well, something happened to make you break that boundary of the new self and the old self, isn't it? An old pattern of conditioning came back in and you went to a creature comfort versus a higher intention. You went to a creature comfort instead of a higher intention. You knocked out that conscious, willing, forward-looking part of you, and you went into coping zone, and you might have went into an old coping zone. I got to know my old coping zones versus my new coping zones. The way I used to cope might not be appropriate in this relationship, in this career, in this role, with this person. Are you guys geeking about this? I love personal development for this conversation. It's a new way of looking at things sometime and go, oh, yeah, man, I never thought about a boundary as something internally that I'm breaking between old self and new self, fake self and real self, and dialing when that happens. This is why I really want to encourage every single one of you. Please, please, please make sure you're going into your GrowthDay app and using the journal to capture what's going on in each of your days, to capture your feelings, to capture when you break a boundary, to capture how you wish you would have shown up, led, performed, interacted, or communicated. Your journal is the most important part of GrowthDay in my perspective, because the break that you might be getting here, you get that every day when you reflect about yourself and you see, when did that happen? When did I go backwards? When did I break the time zone here of old self, new self? What caused me to cope that old way versus this way? It's in thinking about it that we discover ourselves. It's in self-reflection that we discover our future self. It's in self-reflection that we discover our future self. This is the power of journaling.
One of my favorite discussion points is talking with people about whether or not they're setting boundaries in their life and whether or not they're overcommitting themselves. And I'll bet if you think about the times when you've been craziest in your life and meanest to people or upset about things, it's because basically you failed to protect your territory. you got in a place where you felt like you had to say yes to everybody. I don't know if you've ever been a people pleaser. I was a people pleaser early in my career. People would ask me for things. Brendon, I like your book. Could you write an article for this thing and this thing and this thing and this blog and this blog and this blog? Could I interview you for this? Yeah. And everything was yes. And then suddenly I felt one day off path. I was saying yes to everybody's requests, but I wasn't saying yes to what I felt my real purpose was. And I know that sometimes it's easy to get pulled away from what we really want to focus on because, we have family, we have friends, we've got business, we've got a lifestyle to maintain. But the challenge is the more you allow everyone to encroach on your day or what you desire of life or what your plan or your purpose is, the more you're likely to do it again the next day, the next day, the next day. Because, we often get in a habit of giving ourselves over to people. And at some point we feel like we lost ourselves. And so if you've ever been in that place before, this is a good time to say, gosh, if I want more sanity in my life, I'm going to have to start to say no. And saying no is not a negative thing. Because right now, if that's been your association, you think, oh, if I say no, people get mad at me, people feel disappointed, they reject me. And whatever has happened for you that you've built up saying no is a negative thing, I'm here to help reframe it. Saying no and setting boundaries is the most positive thing you could start doing for your sanity ever, period. Because guess what? If you protect your sanity, you protect your day, you protect your life, you protect your purpose, then when you deal with people, you're not angry at them. I mean, think about it. Is there some people that when they come around, you're just like, you get upset about because you know they're going to ask you for something and you know you're going to say yes, even though you want to tear your hair out? Well, that's not their fault. They're conditioned to ask you, and you said yes so many times, and they just keep taking and taking and taking. And now you probably have some bitterness or anger towards that person. And the only way to get it back, to release that anger, to release that bitterness, is to get your day back, to get your plan back, to get your desires back. I'm not pretending it's easy. I mean, we all struggle with balance. But this struggle that we have that saying no is negative has to be reframed. And here's the thing. If you can learn to say no more often to the wrong things, you'll start feeling better about life and you'll start pursuing the right things. Because a lot of people say, my life feels so derailed. I don't feel like I have anything I want. I often say, do you feel like you're a giving person? And they'll say, well, yeah, I'm a very giving person. I said, do you feel like you've given over your life's agenda to other people? You wake up, you check your inbox and you reply to everybody else, but you never do your work. Or, the kids need all these things and you do all those things, but you forgot that one thing you wanted to do for yourself that day. And you did have time for it, but you just forgot because you're so used to serving. Well, it's time to set some boundaries. And it's vital that you do that for your own sanity, but also for your energy in those relationships. Because what I want for you, and I want for everybody, I want them to feel, when they see somebody, engaged, excited, and relaxed about seeing them, not bitter or upset. So here's how you do it. Setting boundaries. First thing, this is going to be so hard for you, you're just going to start to say no. It's the hardest thing ever. And here's why I tell people this. Just say no. Automatically to almost anything that comes to you. You don't actually have to say no to the person or actually reply no. Just in your mind, when something comes in like that, just go, nope. And then justify, why would you say no? Come up with a reason. Well, I would say no because I have these other things that I want to focus on. If your first answer is no, your logic kicks in. You start building some reasoning about why it makes sense that that should be no. And you should be allowed to do what you do. It's super hard, I know. But if you make that first move, it's a no. Now let me think about why it's a no. And then convince yourself that from now on, you have to persuade yourself into a yes. Not them, you. So if it's a no first, now you got to change your mind. And as you know, changing your mind is sometimes hard. So if your first frame is it's a no, and then you have to explain to yourself why it would be a yes, you start to get an incredible amount of clarity about what is right for you and what is wrong with you. And then from there, it's straight up courage and bravery in protecting your day and your dream and your purpose and your mission and your family and your free time. It's just the bravery of now saying to someone, you know what, I'm sorry I have to pass on that because I know you're just coming to me with this now, but I've actually had other plans that have been laid down long ago. And if I don't follow those, then it's being disrespectful to other people. So I know it feels bad that I have to say no to you now, but otherwise I'm cutting you in front of other people who they're just like you. I love them too, and I can't do that to them. So I have to stick to this, and I apologize, but I have to say no. That's it. Now, the challenge in all of that is you're gonna get pouters, you're gonna get complainers, you're gonna get people who keep pushing and pushing and pushing, and now it's just a question of your character. How much at this point in your life are you going to stick to what you know to be right for yourself? Because sometimes we go through a couple years or a couple decades where we know it's right for ourselves, but we're giving, so we give ourselves over to other people, and we end up in a life that doesn't feel right. And I would just say, if you struggle with saying no for so long, please give yourself that gift. Today is the day you're gonna be comfortable saying no. How do you get over a breakup? I get asked this question all the time, and if you're in that situation where you just ended a relationship or you ended a relationship a long time ago and it's still bothering you, this video might help. And of course, I don't know if some random dude you're watching on the internets can actually help you deal with some of the just deep, dark, frustrating, sad things that happen when you break up with somebody you love. And I'm speaking about that from experience. So I'm gonna share with you 4 big ideas that can help you in dealing with a breakup, but also recognize that if that's where you're at, I'm sorry to hear that. I know how hard that is. Some of you guys know my origin story that got me into personal development in the first place was a breakup. You know, I broke up with the first woman I ever loved, and we were high school sweethearts. And that breakup sent me into a deep depression. It sent me into suicidal thoughts. And I don't know what would have happened to me if I hadn't been in a car accident that was unrelated, that helped me kind of like snap back into place, that helped me realize, no, I want to live my life. Because previous to that, when that relationship ended, because I had my whole identity tied up in that relationship, I thought I ended. I thought my life was over. So if you're somebody has told you, well, stop being so dramatic, or your friends tell you, just get over it, I'm not gonna be that guy for you today who just makes it sound so easy. I understand those dark nights where you wonder who you are and what your life's about. That happens when you break up with somebody, especially somebody who maybe you cared for or they broke up with you. Either way, it doesn't feel good. Whether you did the breaking up, sometimes that can feel really good, but there's still stuff there, And if someone broke up with you, there's still stuff there too. So I hope that in this discussion today, we can find something that will help. So I've got 4 big ideas for you. The first idea for you that really helped me is this philosophy called phase 2 philosophy. And what does that mean? It means that you got to look at whatever has happened to you in the past, whether it's a sad thing, a failure thing, a breakup thing, a bad day. You got to say, okay, that was phase 1. Now I'm in phase 2. Phase 1 was all about, experimenting, learning, developing. Now I'm on to phase 2 innovation. It's like giving yourself a mindset that says everything that has happened to us, there was a reason if we don't know what it was, but at the end, there's a product. You, me. It's like us, where we're at now. And now we have to start and go phase 2. It's kind of like that philosophy you've heard before, that metaphor of like a new chapter. That's what you have to think. No matter what the previous chapter said, new chapter. So if you broke up with somebody or you've been broken up with, today is the day that you go, okay, who do I want to be now? Separate from that person or separate from that relationship, like what's like the ideal me look like, sound like, talk like, work towards? How does the ideal me talk with other people, relate with other people? How does the ideal me focus on getting things done? How does the ideal me move about in the world now in phase 2? Because phase 1, I learned. And that is so critical. When you have a breakup, learn. Don't blame. Don't be mad. Don't try to get back. Don't try to recover everything. It's like if the breakup is definitive and it is done, you must also learn to let go. But you know what? It is impossible to let go unless you accept now you're in phase 2. Because if you keep trying to stay and live in phase 1, and every day you keep thinking about them and you're following them on social media and you're still in phase 1 with your behaviors, you'll be miserable. So you got to let phase 1 go. Step into phase 2 by saying, okay, phase 1 was a learning. What did I learn about myself in that relationship? What would my better self do in the next relationship? What did I learn about people? And what did I learn about vulnerability? What did I learn about love? Because I've always learned if you can have a learning mindset, recovery is easier. If you can look back, not to blame, not to complain, not to moan, not to be sad, but rather just to explore. To be today, here in phase 2, but to observe, kind of like flipping back through a couple of the chapters and just kind of looking for a theme, looking for a learning. Oh, okay, that's good to know. Now, this new chapter goes this way. That's what phase 2 philosophy is all about. Learn, got it. Here I am now, make the product better, make us better, make each other grow. And I know that sounds weird to say product, but this is how we would think about this as an example if you're thinking about engineering or product development. And we're all humans in development, right? You're in now, you 2.0 or 3.0 or 4.0. Like you're in a new phase, baby. So if you can step into that new phase with a learning mindset, that will help. Second, you've got to be grateful for phase 1. It's hard. When you're hurt, when you're mad, when you're upset, all you want to do is hate that phase 1 happened. Why did this happen to me? But I want you to be grateful for who you now know you need to become. Who you now know you need to become. Be grateful for that. Be grateful for the times you did have love. Have plenty of nostalgia. Be thankful for those beautiful moments in life that this person gave you in the relationship without needing to cling and get it back. So you can be free from something and appreciate it. Like I had lots of things happen to me in 9th grade and 11th grade that were beautiful and great times with friends, but those friends aren't here in phase 2. It doesn't mean that I don't appreciate those times with my friends. Same thing in relationships. You can still appreciate those things, but they're not here in phase 2, and you're okay with that because you're just grateful for everything you've learned along the way. I know that sounds flippant to say, and you might be like, yeah, Brendon, I'm not grateful, I'm mad. I get that. But I'm here to tell you, your development will not proceed until you can see phase 1 through a learning mindset and a grateful mindset. Until you can do that, you won't live your life. You'll be stuck there. And so if you keep thinking about it, I'm like, great, think about it. But think about it for 2 things. Learning, number 1, think about it for gratitude, number 2, and number 3, what will I do now? Who am I now? That's this phase 2 philosophy. You're starting a new phase of your life, babe. Second big idea, I want you to pour yourself into your friendships and your passions. Pour yourself in to your friendships and your passions. When you're hurt and you're upset, you know what you want to do? Withdraw. You want to go hide in a cave. You want to isolate yourself. But what you don't need now is a great dose of loneliness, my friend. What you need now is social connection. Because in your relationship in phase 1, you had a connection there, and it was a social connection. It was an intimate connection, but it was a social connection. You need a new social connection, and you don't need to go find a new person for that. You can still have connection with your friends. So go re-engage your friends. Go out with your friends more than you used to. Be responsible. Go out with your friends more. Schedule more lunches. Schedule more dinners. Schedule more walks with your girlfriends or your buddies. Like get outdoors, be with your friends, and schedule the time. Don't be like, I got nothing to do this weekend. Pick up the phone. Hey, Pete, do you want to go out? Hey, Sarah, should we meet up? Like, don't sit there and wait for them to come to you. Because remember, a funny thing happens when you're in breakup. Time slows down. And for you, the hours are torturous and the days are horrible. But for everybody else, they're just going through the day, waiting for the next time that they can go hang out. So their life is proceeding. Because when you're sad, time slows down and you really feel it. And I think biology and evolution gave us that so that we can be contemplative and so we can learn. But for you, time's going a little slower than your friends. So don't be mad if your friends aren't all pouring themselves into you. They don't know. They're just going about their day, right? Nothing changed for them. So you've got to be proactive in reaching out to your friends. Pour yourself into friendships. They'll help you not only feel good and laugh, and they'll give you that social connection feeling. Also pour yourself into your passions. whatever you are curious about, I want you to dork about and go deep on. I mean, if you're curious about, this type of movie and filming, or you're curious about this type of business, or you're curious about this topic, go get the books, watch the videos on it, take a course on it, like deep dive into your passions, like dork out, like obsess a little bit, because that little bit of obsession about the things that you really love will also introduce that feeling of like passion and love that obviously you cannot replace from a person or an intimate relationship. But listen, isn't it true? We should all pour ourselves into our passions anyway, right? We all know that phrase, be passionate, live with passion. Well, do that. Don't allow yourself just to mope all day. Listen, I'm totally okay when you break up. If you have 4 or 5 days of nothing but a snot-driven, like Netflix binge, chip-eaten, like bad food, bad drinks, bad everything for 6 days to mope and feel bad. Everyone's allowed that. But that can't be your life. So you've got to re-engage your passions, and don't wait 3 months. Don't wait, I'll do it a year from now when I feel better. Because you know what? You won't feel better. You are going to generate better feelings. You're not going to hope that one day you're happy. You got to start generating happiness. If you heard me teach any time, I always say the power plant does not have energy. It transforms energy from one quality to another higher quality of utilization. Meaning you got to take all that sadness, and at some point you're going to have to transform it and start generating that energy into more positive things for yourself. I hope that makes sense. Number 3, I want you to also do a deep dive into your personal development. Not just the things you're curious or interested about, not just your strengths and your passions. I want you to do a deep dive into personal development. Watch more videos like this from me or other people. Go watch a bunch of videos on TED, listen to a bunch of the podcasts, read a bunch of personal development books, and don't be embarrassed by it. Because you know what? Self-help is necessary right now. You need to do personal development like a pro. Like your personal and professional development is critical right now. Don't wander the woods of sadness for 5 years and wake up 5 years later and go, I'm not any better than I was 5 years ago. We've all been there, and that sucks. Instead, architect the best you. Use this breakup as a breaking point from your old ways of assuming, your old ways of doing, your own limited thinking, and say, you know what, I want to become a positive, optimistic, very mindful person. I want to be a person who's happy and joyous. And you're going to have to learn to deal with your thoughts in that. If you ever hear someone make fun of personal development, all they're not realizing that all personal and professional development is teaching you better ways to use your mind. And if they're making fun of that, let that be their things. You need to learn to use your mind better to become happier right now. Is there a better time to train than right now when you had a breakup on how to use your mind better? How to learn how to be more fulfilled and satisfied, learn how to be happier and more positive, learn how to control your thoughts. Because otherwise, your thoughts can betray you. Your thoughts can start thinking about things that happened and who is blame. That's not good. So get into that personal development. Listen to the podcast, watch the videos, go to the bookstore, pick up 3 books today that are personal development. Even if you think the titles are cheesy, that's okay. You're probably sad. You're cheesy too right now. You might be a cheesy metaphor of a breakup person. It's on your couch and watching the Netflix and the chips and the bad, hey, cheesy's okay right now. Allow yourself a little bit of cheesy personal development. It'll make you feel better. Clearly, if you're still watching me, I think you're just fine. Okay, last big idea, 4th big thing. You need to get some momentum, my friend. If you think about it, in any given relationship, there's compromise, there's give and take. And sometimes in your relationship, you prioritize a lot of other things, but not the projects or the passions or the goals that you had. It's not that relationships slow us down. I am not saying that. What I am saying is, I bet if you think about it, there's a few things you've been waiting to do. And I feel like if you can just set 3 goals related to those things you've been waiting to do each day, and just each day, knock off those 3 goals or those 3 tasks. Doesn't matter if they're big ones or little ones. Just in the morning, write down 3 things you're going to do that day. and reliably do them. Every day, do 3 things to move yourself forward, because you know what the heart loves? Just as much as love, the heart loves progress. And when you have progress in your life, your brain goes, I'm doing okay here. I'm doing good here. We know that as you get more momentum and progress in your life, your self-confidence goes up. As your self-confidence goes up, so too does your social connection ability. You're more confident, you're more able to be interested in people again. And I think that's really important. As you get more momentum, you feel good about yourself. You're more willing to engage people. You got to make sure you're doing things that make you feel good about yourself again. And that requires daily tasks and goals that you do consistently. All right, I hope these 4 ideas helped you today, my friend. Again, if you are in a breakup and it's been hurtful and it's been sad and it's been challenging, I give you my heart right now. I understand that. I've been through that several times in my life. But I also want to let you know, in phase 2 or in phase 3 or phase 4 or 5 upcoming for you, things will get better. You are stronger than you think, my friend, and the future still holds good things for you. So consider what I've shared today. Go put yourself out there. Keep living your life. Have that idealized version of you. You can choose to go through this in a way that is disempowering, or this is about to become the most empowering time of your life. Let's talk about this advice you always hear about called celebrating the wins, right? It's about celebrating the small steps, the initial steps towards achieving your goals, and why that's so important. But let's be honest right off the bat, sometimes you don't do that. And that's why you need to watch this video. And you and I both know that there's so many days that you actually do a good job. Like you go out in the world, you knock off your to-do lists, you do 2 or 3 things that stretch or push you, you add some creativity and flair to the world, and you feel like at the end of the day, you know what? I did a good job today. And you kind of like, maybe you have a glass of wine to celebrate, or you eat your favorite food, or you take a walk and you brag with your friends, whatever it is for you, at the end of the day, you feel pretty good about yourself. But there's also plenty of days where you actually do the same thing. Achieve those to-dos, make an impact, like do your thing, but then at the end of the day, you just go to bed and you don't really notice that you've achieved something. And here's what this is about and why this is so important. So many people deserve to feel so much better about themselves. They deserve to feel stronger and more capable and more confident, but they don't because they're waiting for the big, huge win before they ever allow that win to be integrated in their identity, right? They might win a couple of games, but they didn't win the championship, so they never let themselves feel like a winner, right? They do a good job a couple of days at work, but no one said, great job, and no one gave them a raise, and so they go home and they're like, they don't feel it because they're not allowing themselves to feel the wins. But we know from psychology, and we know from goal attainment theory, that unless you're starting with those small steps and giving yourself credit for them, the odds are you're not going to go on to the next steps that are bigger and bigger and bigger because your identity is still at the beginning stage, right? If you always feel like the beginner at something and you never feel the competency gains that comes from accomplishing and moving forward, but giving yourself credit for it, you're not likely to take on the bigger things in life. So check yourself on this one. When's the last time you really gave yourself credit? When's the last time you really celebrated just a small little thing? And comment below, what was that thing? What did you do? What was the achievement or what was the step you took? And how did you celebrate? Did you go out to dinner? Did you tell your spouse about it? Did you write and journal about it? Did you put something up and frame it? Like, what did you do to celebrate that you were beginning? Because I bet if you're watching this, there's probably some part of your life right now you feel like it's in maybe like transition. Your career is changing or you want it to change. Or your relationships are in transition, or you're in transition of your health. You're trying to get healthier. Something's going on. And so those little steps you're taking, are you celebrating them? Well, here's 3 ways that maybe will help you think through it and do it more often. Number 1, you need to have what we call a reflection schedule. I know, stupid fancy phrase, but you need to have a reflection schedule. If there is not a set time in the week that you sit down and you think about the wins that you had during the week, you won't do it, I mean, you'll be one of those people who like do it on December 31st when you're looking back at the whole year and you're like, what did I do this year? Oh, I can't really remember. Do I feel good about this year? I don't know, right? You know what I'm talking about. So you need to have a weekly scheduled block time where you think about the week with the sole purpose of asking, what did I do well this week? What do I achieve this week? What went well this week? What good things happened that I didn't even anticipate? What good things did I do? How can I feel good about something that happened this week? What could I notice that happened that brought me joy or brought me fulfillment or brought me a sense of accomplishment or even just made me feel more connected? You need to have that weekly scheduled reflection time. I'll tell you, it's one of the most important parts of the confidence that I've gained in my own life because I wasn't a super confident kid. I kind of had to fake my way into it by like just revving myself up and doing a lot of things that, you know, personal, like motivational guys talk about, like rah-rah stuff. But we all know that's like a Band-Aid. At some point, we have to integrate our accomplishments and achievements into our identity if we're going to feel stronger. So when's your time going to be? For me, it's every Sunday night. Every Sunday night, I look back at the previous week and I ask myself about 10 questions, very similar to what I asked you. You know, what happened that was great this week? How can I feel good about something? What can I notice that I appreciated? What small step did I take that, you know what, maybe it didn't get a big win or maybe it didn't get appreciated, but it moved me forward. Even if it was just a little tiny thing, even if it was just sending an email, even if it was just making a call, what small steps did I make this week that are going to make me better next week? What small steps did I take this week that will help me continue climbing the mountain towards my highest ideals? What small steps did I take that I can celebrate? If I don't ask that question every Sunday, it just doesn't happen. So please start your reflection practice every week. That's my first idea. Second big idea, allow yourself to actually feel the win. And I know it sounds like the first tip, but it's very different. A lot of people, they'll journal, they'll write down a list. Yeah, I did this. And the reflection schedule becomes like a to-do list for them. Yep, I did, yep. And they just write down a list. Look, you have to relive it and feel it and integrate it if it's really going to generate confidence for you. So when you're doing your reflection schedule, or even at the end of each night, if you just want to sit there, close your eyes, think about something great you did that day, a small step you took that day, and then just allow it, that heartfelt, that deep connection of satisfaction or engagement that comes with recognizing yourself. I know it sounds silly, but you know, a lot of people, they take selfies all day, but they really don't know who they are. And that happens because they're not connecting with the feelings of life, right? They're all surface level all the time. Quick, take picture, selfie, and they're demonstrating something in the world, but they really don't even understand their internal world. And it's your time to get a better connection with your internal world. And one way to do that is allow yourself to feel those small little steps and wins. Like literally feel it. Like, I know it sounds silly, but I'm so proud of the stupid things that I do. Like right now, we're live on Instagram as I'm filming this, right? I have no idea how that's going. At the end of the day, I'm like, we went live on Instagram. How cool is that? Even if it's a total disaster and people call me horrible names, I'll be like, but we did it. Little steps, and I'll allow myself to feel it. You've never met a kid who celebrates the dumbest little things like me, right? If you're ever around my wife or my family, we're so easily amused. We take so much joy in the smallest dumb little things, and I think that's what spurs on that curiosity and later that confidence in life. So allow yourself to really feel it. Connect with what you're doing again. Because a lot of people have a job they don't love, and they start disconnecting their feelings. A lot of people are in a relationship that maybe isn't as fulfilling as they had hoped to be at this stage of their life. So they disconnect. And we're so good, anytime a feeling comes up or we're unsure what to do, we turn to our phone so we can disconnect, or we turn on Netflix so we can disconnect. Reaching that next level of enjoyment in life is re-engaging, reconnecting, allowing the feeling to come back in again. And then I think my last big idea for you here on celebrating the small wins so you grow stronger is to share them. I cannot believe how many people who are amazing, I'll meet somebody and I'll ask them 5 or 6 questions and they're so not impressed with themselves, but they'll be like, yeah, I I just survived cancer. Or, I just started my own business, and they don't think it's a big deal. I want you to learn to share what you're doing in your life with real enthusiasm. That's how you're really sharing the wins. That's how you're feeling the wins. That's how you're celebrating the wins. Share it with enthusiasm. Many of y'all know I've been blessed to work with Paulo Coelho. He wrote the book called The Alchemist and 11 other international mega bestsellers, right? I don't even know, Paulo's over 20 million fans on Facebook, and just one of the great writers of our time. An extraordinary guy. I love him. And one of the things I remember him telling me on the phone was, when I started working with him, he said, Brendon, what I love about Americans and about the United States is you're allowed to celebrate your successes with other people. That was a big motorbike. You're allowed to celebrate those successes with other people and not look like you're bragging or overly proud. And I know that's not the same in cultures around the world, but cultures around the world need to catch up with that truth, that sometimes in sharing what we're doing with enthusiasm, we feel better about life. We feel more engaged with you. Look, if I can't celebrate my wins with you, if I have to minimize myself around you all the time, that's not a real relationship. That's lying, right? If you're not telling other people what you're proud of in your life, what you've accomplished and what you've achieved, not so that you can brag, but to share your real life, then you're not playing the game of life really well. You're so scared of other people's judgments and you're so scared that they're gonna think you're something, and you're minimizing yourself. You're never gonna get far in life by minimizing yourself, right? Take pride and joy in what you've accomplished and achieved. Share with enthusiasm. I share the dumbest little things that I do with my audiences. I'll be on stage and literally in front of thousands of people, and I'll say something on stage, and I thought that was so great, and I'll say, what? That was really great, right? And the audience is like, oh yeah, and they get enthusiastic too, because I'm enthusiastic. Be more enthusiastic about your life. Share what you're doing. Share those to-do lists you're checking off. Share those accomplishments and the achievements, and you'll feel so much more connected with your life, which you deserve to be. I hope that helps you thinking about this topic. It's time to celebrate the small wins. Set up your schedule, remember to feel it, and then to share it. And now, suddenly, celebrating those small wins becomes part of your practice. You feel your life turn back on, and you'll notice every single day that you're more likely to try the harder things because you celebrated the smaller things. This can be your day for personal growth. This can be that day you committed to and you remember and you go, that was a day I got myself a community. I got better coaches. I committed to making my life the absolute best that I could. This is that day. Make today your growth day. Click the button on this page and sign up right now.